Welcome to the In Sync Now, bringing you the latest news from around the world. In the shimmering turquoise waters of the Second Thomas Shoal, where the sea meets the sky in a seemingly endless horizon, a fragile peace hangs in the balance. This remote outcrop, surrounded by vibrant reefs and shifting sands, is more than just a speck on the map. It is a symbol of national pride, resilience, and the ongoing contest for control in the South China Sea. Here, the BRP Sierra Madre stands as the Philippines' last outpost, a rusting, aging warship deliberately grounded in 1999 to assert Manila's claim. Over the years, this battered vessel has become both a home and a fortress for a small contingent of Filipino Marines who endure isolation and hardship to maintain their country's presence at the heart of a dangerous standoff. What should be routine resupply missions to these Marines have escalated into high-stakes confrontations. Chinese Coast Guard ships, often larger and more heavily armed, use water cannons, aggressive maneuvers, and even physical blockades to prevent Filipino boats from reaching the shoal. Each encounter is fraught with tension, as both sides test the limits of restraint, knowing that a single misstep could spark a wider crisis. These clashes, broadcast to millions around the world, underscore the volatility of a dispute that threatens not only regional stability but also the global economy. The South China Sea is a vital artery for international trade, with 1/3 of all maritime shipping, trillions of dollars worth of goods, passing through its waters every year. Any disruption here could send shockwaves through supply chains and markets worldwide. The sheer volume of commerce that flows through these contested waters makes the South China Sea indispensable to the world's economic health. From oil and gas to electronics and food, the stakes are enormous, and the risks of conflict extend far beyond the region's shores. What began as a territorial dispute has evolved into a test of international resolve, alliance commitments, and the very future of a rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific. Regional powers and global stakeholders alike are drawn into the fray, each weighing their interests and obligations as the standoff intensifies. At its core, the conflict pits the Philippines' sovereign rights as recognized under international law against China's sweeping historical claims symbolized by the ambiguous 9-dash line that cuts across the sea. Legal victories in international courts have done little to resolve the impasse as both sides dig in, unwilling to yield ground. This legal and geopolitical deadlock has transformed the South China Sea into a stage for a protracted and dangerous struggle. With each passing day, the risk of miscalculation or accidental escalation grows, raising fears that a spark here could ignite a much larger conflict. As tensions mount and the world's attention remains fixed on this maritime flashpoint, uncertainty prevails. The question lingers: will diplomacy and restraint prevail, or will the precarious calm of the South China Sea give way to a storm that engulfs the region and perhaps the world? The South China Sea is one of the world's most strategic waterways, serving as a vital maritime corridor that links the Pacific and Indian Oceans. Every day, thousands of ships, ranging from massive container vessels to oil tankers, navigate these waters, carrying goods, energy, and resources between Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and beyond. This sea is the beating heart of global commerce, connecting continents and economies. The South China Sea is bordered by several nations, including China, Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Each of these countries relies on the sea for access to trade, natural resources, and national security. The proximity of their coastlines has led to overlapping claims and heightened tensions, making the region a geopolitical hotspot. For the Philippines, these waters are not just a distant border, they are a lifeline. The sea shapes the nation's security, cultural identity, and economic survival. Filipino communities depend on the sea for food, jobs, and transportation, while the Navy patrols these waters to protect national interests and sovereignty. Over $3.4 trillion in trade transits these lanes each year, making any disruption a global economic threat. If these shipping routes were blocked or restricted, the ripple effects would be felt worldwide, raising prices, delaying goods, and threatening the stability of international markets. Beneath the surface, the South China Sea holds vast, contested reserves of oil and natural gas, potentially billions of barrels. These resources are crucial for energy security and economic growth, fueling the intense competition for control among neighboring countries. The region's fisheries are among the world's richest, providing food and livelihoods for millions of people. Fish from these waters fill local markets and dinner tables, sustaining entire communities and supporting regional economies. Yet Filipino fishermen are increasingly blocked by Chinese vessels, facing harassment and intimidation as they try to access traditional fishing grounds. These confrontations threaten their way of life and deepen the sense of injustice. Control over these waters means power over trade, resources, and regional influence. Whoever dominates the South China Sea can shape the future of Asia's economy and security landscape. The struggle is not just about territory, but about economic security, national pride, and the right to determine one's own future. For many Filipinos, defending these waters is a matter of dignity and survival. Each confrontation deepens grievances and inflames nationalist sentiment, making compromise ever more elusive. As tensions rise, the stakes grow higher, not just for the Philippines but for the entire region and the world. At the heart of the dispute are two irreconcilable claims. China's Nine-Dash Line, first drawn in 1947, claims nearly 90% of the South China Sea based on historic rights. The Philippines, relying on UNCLOS, asserts a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, covering much of the contested area. The legal clash is stark. UNCLOS is a near-universal treaty, while China's claim is rooted in history and national identity. There's no middle ground. Manila cannot cede its EEZ and Beijing cannot abandon the Nine-Dash Line without a political cost. This deadlock leaves both sides entrenched with no diplomatic off-ramp in sight. The standoff is as much about legal principles as it is about power. The roots of the dispute are tangled in history, nationalism, and post-colonial state-building. For centuries, the South China Sea was open to all, but modern territorial claims only emerged in the 20th century. The Philippines' claims are based on geography, effective occupation, and UNCLOS, while China's narrative reaches back to dynastic times and ancient maps. The Nine-Dash Line, formalized in 1947, became a symbol of China's national rejuvenation. Key turning points, like China's occupation of Mischief Reef in 1995, shattered Manila's trust and set the stage for today's tensions. Each side's narrative is now central to its national identity, making compromise politically toxic. The dispute has evolved from legal arguments to a contest of wills. In 2013, the Philippines challenged China's claims at an international tribunal under UNCLOS. China refused to participate, dismissing the process as illegitimate. In 2016, the tribunal ruled overwhelmingly in Manila's favor. China's historic rights within the Nine-Dash Line had no legal basis, and its activities violated the Philippines' EEZ. The ruling was celebrated by many nations, but rejected outright by Beijing, which continued its activities undeterred. The tribunal's decision is legally binding but unenforceable, leaving the Philippines with a moral victory but little practical leverage. The case underscored the limits of international law when confronted by raw power. The legal win did not change realities on the water. The standoff only intensified, with both sides digging in. Since the 2016 ruling, the conflict has shifted from legal battles to dangerous confrontations at sea. China's Coast Guard and maritime militia swarm disputed areas using intimidation and force short of open warfare. In 2024 to 2025, confrontations at Second Thomas Shoal escalated, Chinese ships ramming, blocking, and blasting Philippine vessels with water cannons. These incidents, captured on video, have drawn global attention and raised the risk of deadly miscalculation. Manila's response, assertive transparency, publicizing China's actions to rally support at home and abroad. China accuses the Philippines of provocation, fueling a cycle of action and reaction. Each encounter pushes the region closer to the brink. The risk of a fatal incident is higher than ever. The U.S.-Philippines alliance stands at the very heart of the ongoing standoff in the South China Sea. For decades, the United States has been a key partner for the Philippines, providing not only military support but also diplomatic backing in times of crisis. This partnership is rooted in a long history of cooperation and shared interests in maintaining regional stability and upholding international law. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty is a cornerstone of this relationship, committing both nations to come to each other's aid if either is attacked in the Pacific. This agreement was forged in the aftermath of World War II, reflecting a mutual desire to prevent future conflicts and ensure peace in the region. In recent years, as China's assertiveness in the South China Sea has grown, Washington has repeatedly clarified that any armed attack on Philippine vessels or forces in the area would trigger U.S. treaty commitments. This message is intended to reassure Manila and deter potential aggression. To reinforce its commitment, the U.S. has ramped up its military presence in the region, conducting joint patrols, large-scale exercises, and regular training missions with the Philippine Armed Forces. These activities are designed to improve interoperability and demonstrate resolve. This strong backing from Washington emboldens Manila to stand firm in its maritime claims. However, it also raises the stakes, transforming what might have been a local dispute into a potential flashpoint between two global powers, the United States and China. China, for its part, frames the conflict as a US-led effort to contain its rise and undermine its sovereignty. This narrative fuels nationalist sentiment at home and justifies a more assertive Chinese posture in the region. The risk is real. Beijing may seek to test US resolve, potentially miscalculating and triggering a wider conflict that could draw in other nations and destabilize the entire Asia-Pacific. In this tense environment, the US-Philippines alliance serves as both a powerful deterrent against aggression and, paradoxically, a source of danger, as any misstep could escalate into a much larger confrontation. The South China Sea is now a powder keg, with frequent close encounters between Chinese and Philippine vessels. A single deadly incident could trigger a chain reaction, drawing in the United States under its treaty obligations. Both sides are locked in a dangerous game of brinkmanship, with China testing limits and the Philippines refusing to back down. China's militarized artificial islands and the US military buildup have made the region more crowded and volatile. The risk of accidental collision or escalation is ever present. Nationalism and political imperatives make retreat difficult for all parties. The margin for error is shrinking with every confrontation. The path to de-escalation is narrow, while the slide toward conflict is perilously easy. The South China Sea dispute has become a global flashpoint with no clear winner. The Philippines holds a legal victory but lacks the power to enforce it. China dominates the water but faces growing isolation. The standoff is now a physical confrontation, not just a legal battle. US involvement deters escalation but also raises the risk of great power conflict. The core issue, a clash between historical claims and international law. If China can ignore a binding legal ruling, it sets a dangerous precedent for global order. The future remains uncertain. Deterrence, not diplomacy, keeps the peace. The world must ask, can the rules-based order survive, or is the South China Sea a harbinger of a more unstable era?